Klaus Schwab wants to fundamentally transform the economic system of our country, but countries all over the world, into what he calls stakeholder capitalism. Stakeholder capitalism, it means that businesses would not make decisions based on their bottom line. They wouldn't make actual business decisions. They would make political decisions disguised as business decisions because their decisions would be based on the interests of not their shareholders, but their stakeholders. And who is a stakeholder? Well, Klaus Schwab's definition of a stakeholder is just about everybody. Specifically, he said, stakeholders are people interested in radical leftist political agenda items like abortion and environmentalism and diversity, equity, and inclusion. These people who are activists and lobbyists for those mostly neo-Marxist agenda items, those are the stakeholders, and those people Klaus Schwab wants businesses to take into account when they make decisions for their business. Not to think about their shareholders, not to think about their customers, not to think about their profit, but to think about serving that political agenda. Again, this brings us back to Chris Rufo's tweet. Chris is absolutely right to identify the need here in the United States for anti-ESG legislation. Absolutely right. We should be advocating for this all across the country in individual states. We should be pushing for this at the federal level. But we should ask the question, why do we need this? Why do we need this? The answer to this is because the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab have universalized ESG. ESG is the mechanism by which stakeholder capitalism is enforced. The environmental, social, and governance metrics as defined by Klaus Schwab rate businesses based on their loyalty to these quote-unquote stakeholders. The World Economic Forum, with their universalized ESG metrics, have captured power players in business, in politics, and in finance. And of course, these government officials from all over the world, including, unfortunately, from the United States. The other things that Chris Rufo mentions in this tweet thread are all part of this same neo-Marxist agenda, or this neo-Marxist ideology, the breakdown of civil institutions, cultural institutions. These are just a precursor for the fall or the toppling of government institutions in Western nations and free nations. All of these agenda items are tied into one. They have in their direct object the abolition, the destruction of a free market capitalist society. So while the social institutions are crumbling through the influence of Klaus Schwab, our economic function is being conditioned, once the social institutions fall, to quickly transition directly to what? To a Chinese communist style, quote unquote, capitalism, which isn't exactly Marxism, it isn't exactly communism, because the state doesn't own the means of production and distribution, and there's not pure collectivism, but the Chinese Communist Party controls these so-called private entities. How? Through social credit scores that are exactly like ESG scores. Corporate ESG scores and individual ESG scores. Corporate social credit scores and individual social credit scores. So then we get to ESG exactly, right? ESG we've talked about a great deal. E is for environmentalism. This is the climate change alarmism stuff, the Green New Deal. The S, the social, is essentially DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion poison, which is, it's religious discrimination, it's racism, it's intolerance, it's horrible. It takes our country backwards. The G, the governmental policies, are like abortion, reparations, redistribution of wealth, socialism, this kind of stuff. ESG is a radically leftist neo-Marxist ideology wrapped into what's presented to us as something good and moral, but it's not. Hi guys, it's Liz Wheeler. Don't forget to watch my show, The Liz Wheeler Show, every night at 7 p.m. on the First TV. You can download the free First TV app, or you can visit thefirsttv.com/Liz and start watching today.